So it looks like Games Workshop have addressed the Horus Heresy leaks and in quite a fun way. The new Death Guard already seemed to have swept to victory at a grand tournament on a tide of Poxwalkers, and Games Workshop appear to have cancelled a reveal show only to replace it with a video game one. Let's do a big roundup of a whole bunch of 40k news. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking about a whole bunch of 40k news things that have happened over the last day or two. A bunch of small topics that I thought were interesting enough to talk about on the channel, but maybe didn't need an entire video all to themselves. For these style videos, I usually tend to just build up a bunch of 40k news topics that maybe didn't need talking about urgently, and when there's enough of them, put them all together in one video. But it seems that over the last 24 to 48 hours or so, there's already been enough stuff to talk about in another one. It seems to be a pretty busy time for Games Workshop and 40k, with all these leaks, teasers, previews, and interesting things happening. For this one, there's Games Workshop's response to the Horus Heresy leaks. The Dallas Open preview show seems to be cancelled, but it looked like it happened before the leaks happened, weirdly enough. Death Guard have already won a small grand tournament with a Poxwalker Horde. They've announced their Skulls video game preview next week, which given the plastic kit leak, might mean that there's some chance of Dawn of War being featured in some way. Games Workshop have posted a small correction on their Night kit, basically around the way that it's going to be packaged versus the Abominant, and there's a couple of mini expansions for 40k and Nurgle in the White Dwarf this month, a Blighted Battlefields game mode for fighting in a Nurgle-rich environment in casual play, and a new Death Guard Combat Patrol rule set featuring some demons. Finally, there's also a techie 40k looking Rumour Engine, and at the end I'll round off by talking about the channel giveaway for 5 viewers to win a custom 40k army for the June one. As you can see, plenty to talk about, so let's get into it. First up, as mentioned, Games Workshop already appear to have addressed the leaks on the Saturnine box set. As talked about in the last video, it looks like around about 24 hours ago we had the 3rd edition box set leak out. Weirdly enough, a box set for the new edition of Horus Heresy being put up for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and it seems that the internet's first reaction was that someone's nicked it from Games Workshop. It was certainly interesting enough to see their new take on all very round egg-shaped Terminators. Though probably a bit disappointing for Games Workshop after they've clearly been putting in a bit of effort to their hype campaign. I was wondering if they'd just continue as if it hadn't happened or play off the leaks on their Hearsay website. I think they've done the best fun thing in the circumstances really. Basically just literally taken the leaked photos, put them on their dodgy leaks website, and as usual with about the most unhelpful commentary on the side of the pictures as they can manage. Seems like they're maybe just having a go at casting a little bit of doubt on the leak. I did see a few comments that seem to be thinking that because they posted it here, the leak was in some way not real. So I feel like the majority of people can just tell that they're having a little bit of fun with it. Kind of interesting that they're criticising the picture quality as well on this one. I feel like as Warhammer leaks go, these are about as in focus as they can possibly get. Definitely a bit better than the potato can pictures of that Dawn of War box set recently. Otherwise, when taking a bit of a look at the discussion of those leaks as well, I did notice that this had been posted to Reddit as well. Someone seems to have done a bit of photo editing to actually get the back of the box set to be a bit more legible, so you're not trying to see it at quite such a slant. Nice enough to see the dreadnoughts and other miniatures revealed in a bit more normal proportions as opposed to at some angles. One of the other things that people have been talking about quite a bit in relation to the Horus Heresy leaks is when they're actually going to be releasing the box set and letting us know about it. Previously I was speculating that it had come out with the Dallas Open preview show. Games Workshop usually do a live preview show for their miniatures at their open events. They went through a period of cancelling a few of them last year, but this year seemed to be getting them back on track, and there was one scheduled for their Dallas Open event on Thursday night on the 22nd. It was one of the things that you could attend at the event and you could buy tickets for it and things. Interestingly though, it looks like emails went out the night before to inform people that the event was cancelled, and basically they put on a sort of placeholder game night for it. Apparently some sort of Space Marine 2 event, Classic Space Hulk and Open Gaming Space, though I'm sure it's not seen as good news to people who are looking forward to attending that. I guess we wouldn't really know what the reasons for that were. I feel like it's very tempting to connect it to the leaks of the big box set, but if that was the case you'd expect the leak to come out and then the preview to get cancelled, not the other way around. Otherwise it is interesting that they seem to have scheduled their video game preview for the same day as that, so I don't know if they wanted to not have them compete against each other in the calendar. They probably would have aired at different times though nonetheless. It has been interesting to see Warhammer 40k get quite so many major model reveals on Mondays. We've had new knights, drop pods and space wolves. I feel like at other times in the year Games Workshop would have saved them all up for big preview shows and things, but for some reason they've been announcing them piecemeal on Mondays. I don't know if that might have been a hint that there wasn't going to be one on the Dallas Open and the content that was going to be there has been scheduled for other days. And also there's that mysterious timer that Games Workshop's had counting down 399 hours until the Isfahan drop site massacre. and that expires on the 29th of May, so maybe it's more that the Horus Heresy preview has been moved to 1 week later. Maybe they've just decided to postpone the show by a week, and that means no live reveals at Dallas. I'm not sure some blurry pictures of the box coming out would necessarily stop them from doing a proper reveal show of it either though. There were some pictures going around of the previous Age of Darkness box contents absolutely ages in advance, and there'd still be plenty of hype before the official reveal. I guess we'll find out in due course though. Maybe May the 29th will be the Heresy Thursday to look for though. Before we move on into winning Death Guard lists and all the other stuff, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Resin Wargames. These guys are basically a 3D printing print-on-demand service based in the UK, and they stock a pretty large variety of different wargame model designs. The usual way that print-on-demand services operate is to license from creators out there, and they have plenty of designs from things like Den of Imagination or Gamak. These ones could be used maybe as good proxies for Warhammer 40k, things that are sort of near to the designs but not quite the same thing, or any other miniature agnostic wargame out there, one-page rules and the like. The store's run by Nathan, has good reviews on Etsy, and you can check them out, links down in the video description if you'd like to take a look at them. The design's printed on high quality 12K resin. Shipping wise, the models are posted out from the UK if you order anything. It's free shipping within the UK and then at cost overseas, maybe a little bit more efficient for some bigger orders there. New designs get added to the stores really quite regularly. Apparently next to be added are some of the core designs from dakadaka.store. In any case, if you'd like to check out any of the core designs seen and a whole host of other stuff, feel free to check out the link down in the video description if you want some rather epic looking wargaming sculpts printed nicely. Moving on though, it was interesting to see that Death Guard got an early tournament victory last weekend. The new codex really hasn't been out all that long, most people only getting it in their hands literally last weekend, and Games Workshop had only updated the official points on the app a little bit before that. Hopefully they'll actually update the Minotaur and Field Manual download in the not too distant future. Seems a bit weird that they've lagged behind with that. Now the codex is actually out. The way that the new Death Guard are released, they are looking absolutely super scary though. And I don't think people will be too surprised if they do wind up being right at the top of the 40k power spectrum. And it seems that even in the few events that have used them on the launch weekend for them, someone's already managed to win a small grand tournament. It looks like an Eddie Chater has gone 5 wins undefeated at a 20-player one. What's interesting for this one as well is it's the quirky Poxwalker detachment. This one's the Shamble Rot Vectorium, so the one where you can have your plague zombies enhanced with a bunch of useful stratagems and catch bullets for other units and things. But maybe one of the more striking things is the detachment rule. You basically get to have 3 extra units of Poxwalkers turn up on the board edges, and they appear rounds 2, 3 and 4 at a 2,000 point game. So weirdly for 40k armies out there, it's kind of like you're playing with say around about 2,180 points. Though I guess in reality, the value of those Poxwalkers is a little bit less as you're not making use of their infiltrate rule. The thing is though, even if you max out the Poxwalkers, and this list doesn't quite do that, you've still got an enormous amount of points for other scary Death Guard things out there, and they've got a whole load of very efficient and dangerous data sheets right now. For the Poxwalkers, this one takes 4 units of 20 of them, 1 unit of 10, plus the 3 that turn up from reserve, and the bought-in Poxwalkers can all infiltrate if they want to, so you could have a massive amount of Plague Zombies gumming up all the mid-board objectives pretty well straight away. Otherwise, to lead the Plague host, there's Typhus, a Lord of Contagion, and a Lord of Virulence. I guess the Lord of Contagion would go with one of the 2 units of Death Shroud Terminators with their very spooky close 6-inch deep strike and charge. If I had to guess, then maybe the Lord of Virulence might go with the other one, and Typhus might lead some Poxwalkers into battle. Though I guess you could do other things like the Lord of Virulence or Typhus going solo. That doesn't look like it to be horrible either. In any case, that gives you a massive amount of zombie meat. 2 enormously punchy squads that just turn up from deep strike and delete something. There's a pair of Spawn to act as another nuisance interference unit, and then there's a whole bunch of very weighty Death Guard armour, 3 of the very efficient featured Blight drones with the heavy Blight launchers. With the Lord of Virulence, they're monstrously dangerous. 2 Predator Destructors with las cannons, again very general purpose firepower, and they can debuff against infantry, and then 2 more featured Bloat drones with flesh mowers for a little bit more melee on the front line. In any case, that does look like a pretty problematic list to face against. Hordes that are going to be able to absorb loads of anti-infantry firepower, and then the rest of the list is still adequately sturdy and dangerous that it's going to give you plenty of problems just on damage just in itself. I wouldn't be too surprised if we're seeing quite a lot more Death Guard doing well at tournaments in the next week or 2. I still probably guess that the Poxwalker detachment won't be the main way to play them, but it certainly seems like it's adequately good to win tournaments. Lots of cheap zombies and bodies to supplement the quality Death Guard melee and shooting. Either way, cool to get an early look at them. For another small update on 40k kits, Games Workshop's gone back and edited the Chaos Knight reveal article and just fixed a small error about the way that they're going to be boxed and sold. On Monday they revealed the new Knight Ruinator and said that it will basically be one option to buy this as a box set, and it will be packaged separately from the Knight Abominant, which will be its own box set, and then either one of those will be able to make the Rampager and Desecrator. It seems they made an error with that one though, and instead said that basically you'd be able to build any of the Knights out of the same box set. So you get this, the parts for the Abominant, and the regular base kit all in the same box set. I feel like that does make a lot more sense with a few things really. For the Imperial kit, we had the expansion to the Warden and Gallant bits, and then to Canis Rex, and they were all in the same box, so it fits the similar pattern of the first and then second sprue expansions there. And also it did look like there's multiple bits on this that are only present on the Abominant sprue. I did notice that the housing for that big flame cannon is the same bit as the Abominant's big Volkite that it gets. I thought they just made a very similar looking part, but I guess that will be the bit from the Abominant frame, and then you just add the big flame cannon as an extra to it. And also the warped face mask as well, that's also from the Abominant kit, so if the Ruinator replaced that sprue, then you wouldn't have it in the box. It might not be great news if they do wind up increasing the price on the Knights box as a result though. I think it would be an unusual move for Games Workshop to add a whole extra sprue into a box set and then bring it back at the exact same price it was before. As mentioned a second ago, it looks like we're still getting a preview show on the 22nd of May. It's going to be for the Warhammer Skulls Festival showcase thing. They start off with a preview show, revealing new content for a whole bunch of different games, and likely some new video game releases as well. And then for the remaining week, they have a whole bunch of sales and other promotions and things for the game's features. The showcase stream apparently starts on their Twitch channel from 5 PM on the 22nd UK time, so around about 12 noon Eastern time in the USA. They gave a graphic of a whole bunch of the existing games that are going to have things showcased there. There'll be things for Space Marine 2, Warhammer Total War, Darktide and Rogue Trader, but their little teaser promised multiple world premieres, featuring currently top secret titles, and after the Dawn of War box set leak, it seems likely that one of those titles might not be so secret anymore. I'd certainly be very curious to see what they do with the Dawn of War franchise. It'd be pretty good fun if it was a whole new installment for that game. I guess it could be a remaster or something. I'll certainly look forward to finding out either way though. In this month's White Dwarf, there was a whole bunch of Nurgle-focused content, including a couple of small expansion things for Warhammer 40k. One of them was a rule set for casual games called Blighted Battlefields. These ones have been a series called Aspects of War. I feel like this gameplay series is aimed at a lot of the criticism that they tend to get focusing too much on competitive play. They have been releasing just random fun scenario type things for different optional extras that you can throw in to shake up regular 40k games, and you can use them with both match play and crusade if you'd like to. There've been a few ones before where they've shaken up reserves and stratagems and things. This one's called Blighted Battlefields and represents you having a conflict on a Nurgle corrupted battlefield with a sort of plague debuff mechanic where you can have a bit of an overall game to try and push the plagues and contagions in a way that will harm your opponent more so than you. If you and your opponents choose to play a game like this, then the core rule is called Malign Diseases. The White Dwarf book gives you a small chart of 6 different disease cards, and each of those diseases can be increased in infection level starting at 0 and going upwards as high as 4. The only number that matters for them though is their critical infection level, which when their score reaches that, they're basically active for the rest of the game and provides them big debuffs of one sort or another across the entire board. Some of them go critical on level 2, some of them 3 and some of them 4. The ones with the bigger nasty effects tending to have a higher cost. The way that you increase these infection levels are in 2 different ways at the end of each player turn. First up, after you've finished a player turn, the opposing player can then increase one disease by 1 level of their choice, and then in addition to that, if the controlling player turn didn't use any stratagems at all during that turn, then they can also increase 1 contagion by 1 level as well. That means it'd be a bit of a trade-off. You could potentially get another point towards a helpful game-wide effect if you want to, but to do so faster you might have to hold the command points in reserve, which certainly could be kind of painful in the early game. Maybe could be alright turn 1 if you don't have much to attack. Then these are the diseases themselves. There's 2 infection level 2 ones, one for giving all ranged weapons board wide ignore cover, so a helpful shooting one there, and one a shooting debuff, giving you -1 to hit unless you're within 12 inches of your target. So I guess if you've got a ranged army on one side of the board, one effect would help them, the other would hinder them. There's a Mouldering Pox one for critical level 3, and that one gives you +1 strength in melee against targets that aren't monsters or vehicles. Again, that would heavily depend on the opponent's army and whether or not that would be a decent buff for you or not. Diabolic Delirium is a level 3 one for a -1 Battle Shock debuff. Feels a bit more niche there unless you're playing Chaos Knights or something perhaps. Bane of Behemoths gives you an extra AP -1 when you attack monsters and vehicles. That's for a critical level 4, so that'd be a serious buff against a tank heavy army, though you'd have to save up for it quite a lot. And then finally there's a weird one called the Beckoner's Plague. Again, that one's battle shock focused, and unless your unit is wholly within range of an objective marker or an area terrain feature, you have to test battle shock in the normal way in the command phase. For a level 4 one, that feels like a bit of effort for an effect that seems a bit random really. Overall feels like a fairly fun idea, probably more for theme than novelty as opposed to being anything too in-depth rules-wise, and as ever with these feels like a fairly nice sort of halfway where you can release rules in White Dwarf but you don't necessarily have to have them make them balanced with core 40k for tournaments and things, but those who want to have a play with them can still use them. That wasn't the only Nurgle blessed rules content from the White Dwarf though. Like the Emperor's Children one in the issue before, in this one there was a Death Guard and Demons combat patrol, where if you want to play some small games of 40k, you can fill this one with a Plague Surgeon, a squad of 5 Plague Marines with ranged weapons mainly, 3 Plague Drones of Nurgle, 10 Plague Bearers, and then the option to take an extra 3 Nurglings if you have one of the enhancements. Basically feels like a Taliban Summoners detachment in Microcosm. For the way that this one plays on the table, the core rule is sort of a slightly debuffed version of Nurgle's Gift. You don't get the -1 toughness bit, which is maybe a little bit sad, and instead get the -1 move leadership and OC debuff. The enhancement choice either makes the Plague Surgeon's melee a bit better by AP1, or gives you the 3 Nurglings. I'd certainly take the latter out of those two. There's a couple of different secondary objectives, as you can see on screen here. And then the stratagems that they can access are re-rolling hits of 1 for a unit, or re-roll all hit rolls against monsters and vehicles, which I guess could be nice enough with lethal hits. 1 for the Plague Bearers or the Plague Drones to get +1 strength and +1 AP, so hitting fairly significantly harder there. And 1 command point to force you to take Desperate Escape tests if you want to fall back from Plague Marines besides monsters and vehicles. I guess it could be another small draw to collecting an allied force of Death Guard and Demons. Earlier in the day there was another Rumour Engine teaser, this one kind of non-specific really, so certainly feel free to let me know if you have ideas for it. A bit of machinery and antenna, maybe not so very different from certain Votan and Space Marine ones. I feel like certainly at the moment the temptation is to look at everything and think whether or not it could be Votan, given that people are hoping for a big range expansion for them sometime later in the year. Let me know any other thoughts or possibilities though. Finally I'll just round up with a bit of channel news. I mentioned the June giveaway on the channel, where this one's going to be a particularly big one. 5 winners to get a new Warhammer 40k army, basically up to £250 or $430 of Warhammer 40k miniatures from one faction of your choice, so hopefully should allow a good bunch of people to start a project or add a huge chunk of reinforcements to their army. Just for a few examples of what that could be, here's a Tyrannid force built with that, here's the starter set, Hive Tyrant, Death Leaper, a big Tyrannofex and some other monsters, and you'd also get some Space Marines from this one via the starter set. Here's a Necron example building around the Combat Patrol, the Royal Court sort of formation, a Ghost Dark and some Lich Guard. And here's an example Dark Angels force, Lionel Johnson with 6 Inner Circle companions, some Deathwing Knights and then the Combat Patrol box for some Green Wing. As ever, if you want to enter for that one, there'll be 2 equal ways to enter, the same as all the other monthly giveaways here on the channel. If you want to enter the channel, you can support on Patreon for any amount. That gets you an automatic entry into the giveaways each month, plus a few other bonuses, and it's the main thing that supports me making videos here on YouTube. Or alternatively, you can enter completely for free via supporting the channel on social media via doing these 3 actions. First, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then like the Facebook page linked in the video description below. And then the giveaway post appears on the 1st of June. That one goes live from midnight UK time each month, and reply to that with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo, the last bit just to deter the Facebook bots and spammers. Then 24 hours after that's been done, I lock the giveaway post and do the draw using a random number generator, with everyone entered once equally, and then I'll announce the winners on the channel update video on YouTube around the 4th of June. At that time, I'll contact the winners to ask what they'd want, and the models will be posted out after I've received my orders of them from gaming stores. In any case, hopefully it should add some fun models to a bunch of people's collections, and feel free to check out the links in the video description if you'd like to enter, either via the Facebook or the Patreon. In any case, I'll leave that one there for now. Let me know your thoughts on Games Workshop leak reactions, reveal shows, Death Guard starting strong and the rest. Look forward to hearing all your thoughts in the comments as always. As mentioned, a big thank you to Resin Wargames for sponsoring this one. Feel free to check out their store linked in the video description if you'd like to take a look over their range of seriously cool looking resin goodies. Otherwise though, I'll leave that there for now. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming with new ones out every day. If you've been enjoying the videos on the channel and you'd like to support, the channel's affiliate discount retailers are linked in the video description if you're picking up any 40k models in the near future. There's also the Patreon page as mentioned if you'd like to enter for the giveaways and support more directly. In any case though, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.